Alright, good evening. Here I am sitting in my room like a bored YouTuber who's trying to find work, actual work. Link in the description. Um, I was going to go with one title for this video, but I'm definitely going to switch the title up because I watched a completely different video on Tom Powell's channel regarding a completely different incident, involving a cop. I'm not going to talk about that video. I'm going to talk about this. The link in the description. And I'm following this story because it happened in my town. A man stabbed, near a Wells Fargo bank, and no suspects found. In broad fucking daylight, too. Now, I want to compare this to the Luigi Mangione case, because the reaction from the police for this one, no offense, and the reaction for the police for the shooting of Brian Thompson were like night and day. They're both in broad fucking daylight. But because the man who was stabbed, well, one, wasn't white. I don't know if this is going to be a Black Lives Matter thing or not, so I'm going to leave that off the table. But, it wasn't a rich white CEO. He was just a random guy. And, mind you, like I said, I was doing a joint vlog with War on Earth, before all that shit happened. I was like 200 feet away from that. I was in a different spot, so I was sitting down, so I couldn't quite see the street based on the, the slope of the parking lot, because it comes, a little bit down. And again, there were, other cars parked, like in the top. So here's the parking lot, the street's over here. Let's assume this is a tree, another tree. We were sitting doing our thing. I get ready to, go home and put my resume on blast mode out to every fucking job that I can potentially qualify for. And then next thing you know, I see a guy laying on the street. Traffic blocked, all that stuff. So obviously, I wasn't going anywhere anytime soon if I tried to get out of there. You know what I'm saying? So, needless to say, they cut off the area. There was appeared to be a news station there. Because that's what they do. I don't think it's the same one that is going to be in this link. It could be, but I don't think it is. Anyhow, they got the, they got the statements and all that. Why is this making headline news? It kind of proves the point of many people. If it's just a regular average Joe, it's not going to get mainstream coverage. So whoever's watching this, just spread it out, especially if you live in the Northern Virginia area. Spread it out. This needs to go viral. I don't normally push for shit to go viral, but this is going to be an exception to the rule. And no, I'm not trying to do this just so people can like and subscribe. If you like it, great. That's not the point of this video. The point is this needs to get as much attention as the shooting of Brian Thompson did. But the fact that it's not, all they're doing is looking for suspects, there's not even a fucking reward amount. What did they do after Brian Thompson was shot? New York Police Department, $10,000 reward, which that ain't gonna get people to talk. FBI steps in. They have their own reward, which was 50K, total 60K. Now, I'm not going to talk about, the fact that I guess she didn't get the payout. She may have gotten the payout from Super McDonald's. I'm not going to get into that. What I am going to get into is we're not seeing that same type of effort just because it was a random dude, and also there was no gun. I mean, hell, there was no fucking noise. You didn't hear two people, arguing. Oh yeah, but fuck you up, da da da. It was just after we finished our vlog, I got up and actually, see a dude laying on the street, and that was that. People, calling 911. Fucking sick motherfuckers just fucking recording it for their own entertainment just to get views. I hope whoever fucking recorded that for their own entertainment. I know we don't wish bad on things, but I hope they get the same energy that they put out. And that's all I'm gonna say. Now it could be a loss of their job. The loss of their YouTube channel if they're also a YouTuber. But that's not good energy. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to wish harm upon people. But, what energy you put out there is going to come right back at you. But enough about that. This shit needs to go viral. The guy that was up, he could have been, a POS. He could have been a millionaire and just dressed like a schlub. We don't know. I mean, the only thing we do know is that, the alleged suspects, which, they haven't really identified, and, I think it could be, the whole code of silence factor. And that's often why a lot of cases go cold, they're going to have to step it up if they want to get information. And, because of, the time that we live in, nobody's going to talk. Does that make it right that nobody talks? That's certainly up for debate, it's just the environment that, we live in, maybe I'm wrong. I'll have, some type of hope that somebody says something. I mean, it happened, pretty much in front of a bank, which is littered with fucking security cameras. In fact, hell, there may even be a camera at the bus stop, which I believe, according to the article, that's where it actually took place, was right there at that, that bus stop by the bank. So, obviously they closed off the area. Unfortunately, the guy, the victim did die due to his injuries. I know watching somebody die, that can kind of fuck with you a little bit. I did hear one woman, cursing up a storm, and then, later another woman was, I think, either talking on the phone. I'm not sure if he was talking to her family, or the police at the time. I'm not really sure, I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna fall back, once they get there, we did go see what we can do to help. There were people surrounding, and obviously, we just chose to exit and go back to our cars. Me and my buddy and me. And but yeah, this shit needs to go viral. And I would say, contact the Fairfax County Police Department and tell them they need to do a whole lot better than what they're doing. Anyhow, I'm going to follow this case. Let me know if you have any updates, yourself. And yeah, regardless of what happened, the code of silence doesn't doesn't really help. And it's really fucked up that it takes a certain amount of money just to get justice for somebody. If they, if the police departments offered, rewards for a CEO, then they should do the same for a regular Joe. Anyhow, just my 2 cents. I'll talk to you.